All right, well, what'd you think of Nigel Farage there? Let's see. Farage is how Donald introduced him. Probably Trevor sits in the back and makes fun of me when I mispronounce people's names, saying that old fart don't know how to pronounce anything. But Nigel had a lot to say, and goodness gracious, you couldn't pay me to vote for Hillary Clinton. That was funny enough. Then he says, Hillary Clinton couldn't pay me to vote for Hillary Clinton. And, oh, wow. I love the way he wants to talk to the common folk. The elitists, the globalists, and things like that he calls them. Basically, to him are the enemy. He talked about Barack Obama and him coming over and talking down to the Brexit people, looking down his nose at them. Made sure to point out that he gave his opinion back, and his opinion wasn't real excited about what Mr. Barack... I was hoping so bad he would say Barack Hussein Obama, but he said... How did he pronounce the first name? Was it Barack? However he was, but he didn't say Hussein. But can't have everything. It was an outstanding 6-minute speech. And I hope that Trump takes, and he has been, but I hope he takes some lessons on exactly how Nigel went about what he had to say. And, hitting on what's important and making sure that he was talking to we the people and, hitting on what Hillary is all about and hitting on how we the people can do better than that and so much more. Of course, Hillary wasn't real pleased with good old Nigel, and she had to speak out against Mr. Farage. Presidential candidate Hillary Clinton has lashed out at UK Independence Party leader Nigel Farage during a speech at a rally today. Mr. Farage has told Breitbart London her comments are extraordinary and suggested she spend more time speaking to the working people in her country than attacking him. I'm thinking he ain't really got no dog in this fight, so he can say whatever he wants to. Go ahead and do what's important to your country. I'm not important to your country. Actually, that's just common sense. And the article that's at Breitbart.com, Mrs. Clinton has ranted about the outgoing UKIP leader who appeared at a rally for her political rival for the presidency, Donald Trump. Clinton slammed Trump for having Farage appear on stage to talk about the Brexit vote, and even went as far to suggest that the former UKIP leader of being in bed with Russian President Vladimir Putin because he had appeared on Russian television broadcasts. Now, before you start panicking and worrying, let me just give you a little bit of a preview. It was half-truths and lies, okay? Just so your blood pressure don't go through the roof or your nerves start acting up. Just yesterday, quote, one of Britain's most prominent right-wing leaders, a man named Nigel Farage, who stoked anti-immigrant sentiments to win the referendum to have Britain leave the European Union, campaigned with Donald Trump in Mississippi, Clinton said. Farage has called for a ban on the children of illegal immigrants from public schools and health services. He has said women are, quote, worth less than men. and supports scrapping laws that prevent employers from discriminating based on race. That's who Trump wants by his side. The godfather of this global brand of extreme nationalism is Russian President Vladimir Putin. End quote. What a lying piece of garbage. Let's look at what the real truth is. Let's get Mr. Farage a chance to speak here. He has told Britain's Breitbart exclusively, I think Hillary Clinton is running scared. Her attacks on me are completely baseless. She sounds rather like Bob Geldof, not Orff, off, and can't accept Brexit. He added, perhaps Mrs. Clinton should spend more time speaking to normal, working people in her country than trying to attack me using dodgy half-quotes. End quote. Here's the deal. Mr. Farage did not actually ever suggest that the children of legal immigrants are banned from public schools, but rather suggested that people who have not paid into the UK tax system should not be the beneficiaries of public money until they paid in. That seems to make sense. His comments, used widely out of context by Mrs. Clinton, also included the idea of having private insurance to use Britain's public services, a common thing in the U.S. He has previously stood by the idea that women who take maternity leave are perceived by employers to be worth less than men. He didn't say that women are worth less than men. He said that employers perceive women in that way when they take maternity leave, though he never opined on whether or not that was fair or just. Maybe he should have come out and said, but still, she tried to quote him saying women are worth less than men. She left out the part where he said women are perceived by employers to be worth less than men. Nice double talk there, Hillary. Her comments linking Mr. Farage and Mr. Trump to Vladimir Putin were reported on by Breitbart London recently. It was a Project Fear tactic used by the Remain campaign during the European Union referendum, which Mrs. Clinton and Mr. Obama's side lost. That's right. They were for the Remain in the European Union side, and they were big fat L's. And I put the L on my forehead, even though I tell my kids and grandkids that I never did like that. I'll go against my own beliefs on that and call them big fat losers, because that's what they are. Mrs. Clinton's speech was aimed at the alt-right. And Breitbart, though Farage has never claimed to be a member of the alt-right and has actively distanced himself from many public figures who are perceived as such. His party, UKIP, which is 23 years old, has consistently stood by the position that left and right are now useless monikers in politics, and that the battle is now about the corporatists and globalists versus average people. And that's where we're at in the election. It's taking a billionaire to fight for the common people. It kind of makes you scratch your head, but that ought to say something to you about the kind of a man Donald Trump is. He's basically putting his life on hold to run for president and spending a lot of his money to do it. It is what it is with Mrs. Clinton, Hillary, and Nigel. I would guess that when it comes to holding their own in a debate/dispute/war of words, I'm pretty sure Nigel can hold his own and has been through quite quite an ordeal himself. And so Hillary may just want to pay attention to what's going on here in the United States and leaving the Brexit people alone. Let's see, what else do I got on my list here? Well, there's that. I want to talk more about Trump and Hillary, and I've got other articles that I'm going to go with here in a minute, but it seems like every few days there is a new set of emails that have come out, and it's almost like this is normal life. We get a shocking revelation, not revolution. We could use a revolution sometimes, but a shocking revelation that comes out against the Clintons, the Clinton Foundation, Hillary, her email server, yada, yada, yada. And it's becoming the norm. It's like we're almost immune to how grossly, criminal, treasonous, whatever word you'd like to use to put in place there. And it's like we become numb. And every single time it happens, it ought to be just as outrageous as the very first time. I'm sure she says, what difference does it make now? Oh, she did say that one time. And that ought to be her campaign slogan. What difference does it make now? This is all stuff in the past. Oh, but we're told that you can predict the future by looking at the past. Or we're told that you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Did I just call Hillary an old dog?
You should have.
I think I did. Good for me!
Good for you.
Well, Trump needs to make sure, and he is doing a good job of, I read something a friend of mine wrote today that said that he is saying and doing things that Romney and McCain were afraid to say and do because they didn't want to play dirty. To use a nickname called by a professional wrestler, she is the dirtiest player in the game. And in order to beat her, you got to take the gloves off and you got to swing and punch just as hard as she swings and punches and double down and get her done. Because she's not going to play fair. She's never played fair. You can look at her entire adult life and nothing about it is what us normal, common, everyday American folks would do in our lives and be proud of. As a matter of fact, she ought to look at her life and be ashamed of who she is. And there you have it, my observation of Hillary Clinton. Trump, keep pounding her and pounding her and pounding her with the truth. You don't have to make stuff up. You don't have to call her names. You don't have to do any of that stuff. All the ammunition is already there. It's hand delivered. It's wrapped with a bow on it. All you got to do is just continue to pound it home. And American people, do not be numb to the fact that it's over and over and over. Be the opposite. Be outraged that it's the same thing over and over and over, and she's gotten by with it over and over and over again. And it's time to put a stop to it. She cannot be allowed to continue on in the power-hungry craze that is the Clintons. Speaking of power-hungry, two entities here in this story. And there has actually been an update since I pulled this story up. The U.S. Navy warship, a U.S. Navy warship, was harassed by 4 smaller Iranian boats Thursday. The Iranian forces ignored warnings as they raced toward the guided missile destroyer, the USS Nitz. The U.S. Navy described the incident as unsafe and unprofessional and said it occurred in international waters in the narrow Strait of Hormuz. That's the mouth of the Persian Gulf, an area where Iran has threatened U.S. Navy vessels before. Now, you may have seen video footage, and I guess I could probably describe it as it looked like 4 mosquitoes attacking a donkey or something.
4 mosquitoes attacking an elephant.
There you go. That fits better. 4 mosquitoes attacking an elephant. I don't know why I want to say donkey anyway. That's the left. On one side you're using the word boats, and on the other side you're using the word destroyer. You talk about a fair fight. They're picking the fight, and it ain't a fair fight on their terms. But they believe it is a fair fight because they think we're too chicken to do anything about it. Which makes my other point. We're probably too chicken to do anything about it. Because we have a leader in Barack Hussein Obama that has given billions and billions of dollars to Iran, has paid a ransom for hostages. It just kind of leaked out. Oops. We paid to have them released. See, all that does is put a target on the back of every American around the world that if you take them hostage, maybe, just maybe, the Obama White House will give you money. And lots of it. Now, I know you're going to say, oh, it was just part of the money that was theirs to begin with, that it's been frozen since 1979, da-da-da-da-da-da, yada, yada, yada. Get out of here. Keep your liberal one-liners, talking points to yourself. And go play in the highway somewhere or something. Today I heard that they decided to play around with us again, and this time there were shots fired, warning shots were fired. This first one that we were reading about a minute ago, they didn't fire warning shots, they fired 10 flares and sounded the ship's whistle several times to warn the boats away.
Whistle. Not a horn. A whistle.
What did I say?
You said whistle.
Oh.
That just sounds funny because it's coming from a boat.
Yeah.
A whistle on a boat.
I'm just reading.
Instead of a horn on a ship. Exactly.
Okay. My whistler ain't working very good. And I was trying to whistle anchors away. And I tell you what, lobbing some kind of weapon piece of ammunition in the middle of one of those little boats that look like would belong on your local association's lake somewhere, putting a couple of those at the bottom of the Strait of Hormuz might stop that. Or then again, it might not. But I guess we don't want to offend the Ayatollahs and the mullahs and all those laws that are over in Iran with their heads wrapped up and, already bandaged for when you punch them in the eye.
Wearing dresses?
Yeah, wearing dresses. Boy, I'm sarcastic today for some reason.
You are. You better get that out of your system.
Uh-oh. Let's quit letting other countries make a mockery out of our men and women in uniform. Russia has been zooming over ships of ours. China has done some things. And they're all laughing at us. We're the United States of America. They shouldn't be laughing at us. They should be respecting us. But they don't respect us because we have a leader who is not a respectable person. Period. At all. And so there is my Barack Hussein Obama update for the day. Let's see. Well, there's more on Obama. I may just read some headlines here. 5 states sue Obama administration over rules that might require doctors to perform sex change operations. So now doctors are required to do things that maybe they don't agree with. 5 states have filed a legal challenge against the Obama administration over its recently released health care rules, which some believe might be used to force doctors to perform sex change operations or other services that may violate their conscience. Texas, Wisconsin, Kentucky, Nebraska, and Kansas are all part of the suit, as well as the Christian Medical and Dental Association and the Roman Catholic Franciscan Alliance. The requirement discards independent medical judgment and a physician's duty to his or her patient's permanent well-being and places them with rigid commands, said the complaint, reported by the Associated Press. Pretty soon, if things don't change and get better, it's going to be where it doesn't matter what people come and request, you better do it or you're going to be sued by the federal government.
Yeah, but why is against doing a sex change? Why would you want them to do a sex change on you?
Well,
why wouldn't you just seek out a person that's for sex change operations and let them do it?
Makes sense to me, but that's probably why they won't go, put that way into effect, because it makes too much sense.
I guess, but I wouldn't want somebody to do it if they weren't into it, because what better way to botch something if you didn't want to do it and the government's forcing you to? Well, let's just screw it up.
Well, I mean, the same thing holds true with bakeries and things like that.
Absolutely.
Why would you give your business to somebody who doesn't want anything to do with you?
Absolutely.
Take your money to somebody who supports you.
Well, sure. And then you know that the job's going to get done right, and you'll be giving money to people that support you. That just makes zero sense to me.
Well,
but who am I?
Yeah, who are we to think that
common sense
would work?
Would play a role in anything.
Here's another one. Texas judge blocks Obama administration's policy allowing male students in girls' restrooms.
Ooh.
I bet you this don't last very long.
I bet it doesn't either.
A federal judge has placed a preliminary injunction on a controversial directive from the Obama administration that required public school districts to allow male students who identify as females to use the girls' restrooms and vice versa. U.S. District Judge Reed O'Connor determined that the U.S. Department of Education and the U.S. Justice Department had not followed the proper channels in issuing the nationwide guidance and suggested that the department's interpretation of federal law was incorrect. Imagine that, a libtard that had an interpretation of the law that wasn't accurate.
Imagine that.
I can't imagine that. It cannot be disputed that the plain meaning of the term sex, following passage of Title IX, meant the biological and anatomical differences between male and female students as determined at their birth, he wrote. Without question, permitting educational institutions to provide separate housing to male and female students and separate educational instruction concerning human sexuality was to protect students' personal privacy or discussion of their personal privacy, while in the presence of members of the opposite biological sex. We'll hear more about this, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
We'll be talking about this again not too far in the distant future. How about this one? A black pastor who wrote a opinion column says, how can Black Lives Matter when 20 million black babies have been aborted? One of those things that make you go,
But I like him.
Clenard Childress, senior pastor for New Calvary Baptist in New Jersey, writes in an opinion column that the Black Lives Matter movement needs to separate itself from Planned Parenthood. Yet there has never been a stranger paradox than the announcement that Planned Parenthood is in collaboration with Black Lives Matter. The epitome of oxymoronic examples, he writes in the column. Quote, Black Lives Matter is partnering with an institution which was designed with the hope of completely eliminating African American people, he writes in the column for lifenews.com. Some would call this genocide. For this same organization is responsible for over 20 million African Americans missing by sanctioned murder in America. Childress says that the partnership with Planned Parenthood will make people question the true motives of Black Lives Matters. He suggests rereading the work of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, whom he called a true elder. I am for social justice, but the King of Love, Dr. Martin Luther King, showed us the way he had received from the King of Kings. African Americans need to step back, look, and ask for discernment. And I would say all Americans need to step back, look, and ask for discernment. And while we're at it, maybe we should step back, remove hyphens and the word before the hyphen, and just leave the word American. And then maybe we might all be much better for it. Just saying. I was going to read about the controversy at Fox News, the lawsuits that are being filed for sexual harassment and things like that. Former Fox anchor says network operates like sex-fueled Playboy Mansion-like cult, and this is not the original complaint, which was done by Gretchen Carlson in July. This one is Andrea Tantaros, and in the complaint it says Fox News masquerades as defender of traditional family values, but behind the scenes it operates like a sex-fueled Playboy Mansion-like cult. I don't know. It's usually when there are several people screaming foul, there's usually some kind of a foul. I hope that if that is the case, whether it's Fox News, some scumbag in downtown Indianapolis, or somebody right here in my neighborhood, that they would pay the price for being scumbags and let people get on with their lives. Again, we've not heard the last of this story as well. And finally, if you want to know what a real leader looks like, you can look at the Republican candidate for Vice President, Mike Pence. Yesterday here in Indiana, there were numerous tornadoes. I've heard upwards of 30 that were spotted, but 8 of them produced some severe damage, flattened homes. There's a video of somebody shooting from across the parking lot of a Starbucks, and the Starbucks just buckled under and collapsed right on video. I mean, you can see the whole thing. Huge. I mean, the damage will probably be for sure in the millions and maybe even up in the billions of dollars. One of the tornadoes had winds of up to 165 miles an hour. There was one apartment complex that I read about that had 16 buildings, and of the 16, 8 of them had no roof. Immediately, Pence left the campaign trail and headed back to Indiana to make sure, as he said, that Indiana was being taken care of in an appropriate manner by all agencies that would be involved. That's what a real leader does. He didn't make excuses. And today, one day after, not 1 week or 10 days or whenever I'm off of vacation, one day after it, he was standing in the middle of the rubble with people. Oh my goodness. You think maybe the first responders would have to not be working and worried about his security and all that? I know, he's not the President of the United States. Okay.
He should be.
He's a leader. And leaders go to where their people are hurting and try to make them feel better, feel like they have hope. And that's what Mike Pence was doing today in Indiana. If you want to see a leader, watch what Mike Pence does. He would be a fantastic Vice President of the United States of America. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of the Ed Boston Podcast. We're glad to have Amy here with us at the end. Started off, you got to hear my granddaughter Reese say hi, and now you get to hear Amy say bye.
Bye.
Boy, she's just right on cue, isn't she?
I'm so good.
So, for all of us here at the Ed Boston Podcast Network, go out and do the right thing. Take care.